back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah, and today I am going to be talking about the books Fable and Namesake by Adrienne Young in anticipation of another book in this same universe called Saint, which will be out on November 29th. And I do intend to read that, and I'm pretty excited about it. The way that I came to read these books, about a year ago, I think, maybe a little over a year, I got a coin in either Illumicrate or Owlcrate from Fable, and I had not read the books yet. However, my husband just kind of started playing around with it, at which point I just said, you know, you can have it. And then he decided he wanted to understand where this coin came from, if he was going to use it as almost like a fidget toy. So he actually read these first and then jokingly gave me a hard time about the fact that he had read them and I had not. So I finally picked them up and I did enjoy them. So I'm going to give just like a brief overview of the plot for the first book, get into spoilers, and then do the same with the second book. I don't want to mention too much of a plot overview with the second book because I feel like that might give spoilers away just by the nature that you are going to learn information that was divulged in the first book. So starting out with Fable, this is about a main character named Fable. She's a young girl who was kind of abandoned on an island called Javal. She's been working there as a dredger, so that's someone who kind of like dives down and digs gems and like valuable stones out of the ocean floor, which she is then able to sell. She's very good at it. Her goal is to get off the island, to make enough money to get off the island so that she can work on the crew of a man named Saint. And she eventually does make enough money to buy passage on a ship called the Marigold, where she meets a variety of characters that are members of the crew and develops various relationships with all of them as they are traveling. So getting into the spoilers for Fable, I can't remember exactly where it is that you find out that Saint is her father. I think it's pretty early on in the story because she mentions that he was whenever he left her on the island of Javal, he was very intentional to remind her that she was not to divulge that information to anyone. And of course she was thinking that he just didn't want to claim her. So I think it was pretty early on, but some of the other characters don't learn that right away. Some of them kind of figure it out just with various pieces of information that they gather. Others are kind of shocked to learn that she is the daughter of Saint, who's like the most powerful trader in the Narrows where they are. So I didn't want to mention that in the overview. Hopefully nobody is watching the spoilers part that didn't want that to be ruined, but I think it's a pretty early detail that we find out. In terms of the other characters in this story, I didn't really get attached to any members of the crew. I feel like we weren't given enough information and enough time with them to really grow any sort of attachment, and quite honestly, like, I forgot some of their names. Like, it would talk about one of the other members, like I think Hamish is one of them, and I was like, who is this? I don't remember. So it was kind of slow going at the beginning of the book. I really liked Fable and Saint's relationship. Typically, I'm like real into the romance, if there is a romance in the story, and that really wasn't the case this time. I was very invested in that father-daughter relationship, because they both had, you know, a different understanding of what happened. He left her on the island of Javal because he thought she would be safer there. He didn't want her to tell people that they were related because he thought that would put her in danger. And like, really, he was afraid of kind of growing too attached and something happening to her because her mother had died in a shipwreck, and that kind of just, you know, was really, really hard for him. So I liked seeing their relationship grow and change, and as they spent a little more time together, kind of admitting some of those feelings and saying the unsaid things that they had been thinking for a while. So I did really like that relationship in this story. I was really interested in the mechanics of like the dredging and the gem trading. I don't really know how much of that is true and how much of that was just the world that Adrienne Young created for this story. I did a little research about dredging, and I know it's done with machines, but I don't necessarily know that people do it. and Fable is a gem sage, so that means like different gems, like she can like hear them. They make different sounds, and she can identify real ones versus fake ones, and she can also tell the difference between ones that look very similar. So I thought that was a really interesting part of her character. Fable does end up in a romantic relationship with the captain of the Marigold West, and you find out that he was one of the people who knew all along that she was Saint's daughter. In fact, Saint had been paying him to go and kind of check up on her every few weeks for the 4 years that she was on the island of Javal. And it came to the point where he didn't even need the money anymore. He was doing it just because he had feelings for her. So they do end the story in the beginnings of a relationship, I should say, which then continues into the second book. Moving on to Namesake, throughout this story, we get to see a little more of Fable's relationship with Saint. We find out a little bit more about her mother. Her mother worked for a different captain, Zola, for a while and then left to join Saint's ship. We learn that her mother is a really powerful trader in the Unnamed Sea. Her name is Holland. And so Fable, you start to realize, is related to some very powerful people who do not necessarily get along. And so there is a lot of tension in this story between what Holland is trying to accomplish, where she's trying to get a new trade route, and also the fact that if she is able to do that, then Saint could be in danger of not only losing some of his business, but also he could potentially be in danger of getting hurt or potentially killed. So Fable's kind of torn between wanting to know her mother's side of the family and also wanting to protect her father, even though he, has not really done much to help her in her life. She still loves him and is loyal to him. As I mentioned previously, Fable and West developed a relationship in the first book, and it does continue into the second book. They start off being separated. She was kind of kidnapped by Zola and taken to Holland, and there was this whole trade deal that was supposed to be established and a lot of backstabbing, that sort of thing, but West eventually finds her. And from then on out, it's kind of like just a cycle of disappointments, betraying trust, but sticking together because they have feelings for each other, but wanting to get disassociate from Saint and Holland, and it kind of got old. I think I would have liked it more if West and Fable had finally built up that trust, and then maybe one decision was made that kind of damaged that for a little bit, but they rebuilt it. And instead it was kind of like, I can't fully trust you, and here's another reason why. And just to kind of further prove that point, I can't trust you, so here's another thing. Like, it was a lot. And it kind of, I don't know, I felt like I didn't know if they were going to come back from it. They did, but it was, it kind of wasn't enjoyable because it kept happening so many times. At the end of the story, Saint finally does claim Fable as his daughter. And I really enjoyed that because it kind of showed that he was starting to think of her not just as somebody that he needed to protect and was afraid to lose. Like, I'm sure he still feels those things, and he did mention, that was a major cause of a lot of his decisions, but he's starting to see her more as an equal. She is very talented in her gem saging skills. She's a talented dredger, and so he starts to build that trust in her a little bit more, and lets everybody else know how proud of her he is, which I thought was really sweet. So overall, I did enjoy both books. Definitely not my favorite by any means. Knowing that the new book coming out is going to be kind of Saint's backstory and how he came to be this super powerful trader, I am really interested in seeing how that kind of ties into what we know about him from the first two books. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in reading the new book that comes out, I highly recommend, of course, reading Fable and Namesake first. And if you've read any of them or plan on reading any of them, please let me know. And thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye!